Hey, Allison, welcome to the podcast.
Hello, good morning.
Good morning. I'm so glad that you're with me. We're recording this show the day after Thanksgiving. And we were talking before we were recording about all the delicious foods we like to eat and, just spending the holiday decompressing a little bit. So thanks for spending the time with me and being here. And I'm so excited to ask you. I have so many questions about a lot of things. And hopefully this will give the good listeners also some insight into how they can do hard things as athletic folks out in the world, as women kind of pushing the boundaries of athleticism. So I appreciate that you're here.
Oh, thanks for having me.
Yeah. Oh
Be
my
fun.
gosh. Where do we begin? Where do we begin? Well, I will say I I've been sort of loosely following what you've been up to for the last couple of years, and I won't give all the spoilers away, but I will say when we were watching you in your second selection, and we'll talk about what that is soon for the listeners if they're like, what is that? But we were watching you in your second selection, and we were on our phones in the living room because GORUCK Scars was streaming this event. And we were this was like the best reality TV I think I'd ever seen. And as the time ticked by in this event, we were just we were so compelled and so glued to our screens, and we're so just excited to see you there doing what you were doing, and it was very magical. And then at the end, when you were sort of talking about why you were doing what you were doing, and we'll talk about that later too. I was crying. I mean, it was amazing. I was like, who's cutting onions in here? Because I just thought it was so amazing. So for the good listeners, give us a little bit of background into you. Like have you been athletic your whole life? A sporty person? What have you participated in? And we'll kind of take it from there.
Cool. I would not describe myself as very athletic. I did swimming. So I was a swimmer from age like 5 to 17,
Hmm.
but I was never really good. I was probably good until I was about 12, and then that awkward like puberty years hit, and you either got really good or you just stayed the same. And I just kind of stayed the same. So I wouldn't really call myself athletic. I was a swimmer. I couldn't throw a ball. I couldn't run. I couldn't do any of those things. Um, so I was really all I did was swimming. And then once I went to college, they didn't have a pool there, but they had a very tiny pool. So then I just kind of did like free weights and machines and that kind of stuff until I found CrossFit when I was like 23, 24. And I was obsessed with CrossFit. Like I think most people kind of get obsessed with CrossFit. I was absolutely obsessed with CrossFit. Um, let's see, if I was 23, 24, probably for like 4 or 5 years. And then through CrossFit, because a lot of the CrossFitters at that time, like the big names was like Lindsay Valenzuela and Tommy Hackenbrook and those guys, and they had done this thing called Seal Fit Kokoro. And I saw that and I was like I want to do that one day. But I couldn't do a pull-up at the time. And part of the requirement to get in was to do like 6 dead hang pull-ups. And I was like, I'm just never going to be able to do that. And then 2017 rolls around and it turns out I can do some dead hang pull-ups. So then I signed up for Kokoro, and that kind of like started this endurance type thing, because that's a 48-hour, it's like the SEAL version of selection, but it's a lot more like team based, but it's still 48 hours. It was the longest I'd ever done anything for, and definitely trained. I didn't have a coach, but I trained like myself for it pretty hard, harder than anything I'd done before. And then like through that, I found like adventure racing and things like that. And um, yeah, just kind of got into all this weird stuff. So like I used CrossFit to train for a lot of things, but it just wasn't. I think I kind of realized like I don't have like the skill or the body awareness to be a professional CrossFitter. So these like long, like I'm good over the long haul.
Mhm.
But like short sprints, I'm just not that great at. So once I found the endurance things, it was like, I might do okay here and I might enjoy it because there's not that pressure of, you know, like you have to like sprint or, you know, be really good at everything. You can just kind of be average, which is what I consider myself as pretty average. Like I'm not
Well,
really bad, I'm not like really good. I'm just right in the middle.
yeah, I totally understand that part of athlete brain as well, where you're like, oh, I'm not that great. And of course, anytime you pull up to an event or something like that, you know, you have to think about your own state of readiness and your preparedness to perform and whether it's a competition or an event. And of course there are different shades of that, but you know, sometimes it also depends on who shows up that day and how we measure ourselves against the rest of the field and that sort of thing. But I can't imagine I can't imagine knowing now what I know that you have accomplished, thinking, oh, you know, you're not that great an athlete. I think you're an amazing athlete. But I'm curious if you go back to when you were swimming and you said, you know, kind of we all go through that wonderful puberty period where everything gets weird and our bodies change. But you said, you know, you didn't really improve past a certain point. And I'm wondering, I think this is an interesting question for people to hear the answer to is why did you keep doing it? If you felt like, you know, for a lot of people, they want to continually see improvement, I guess. And if not, they think, well, what's the point? So what kept you coming back to swimming and participating in swimming, even if you felt like you weren't improving maybe on the same trajectory as your peers?
I mean, I really enjoyed it. All so I was homeschooled from second grade on, and so like all of my friends, like all three of my friends, were on swim team. So I mean, that was kind of like my only social outlet that I had. And then, like I say, I was really bad at anything on land. So it was kind of like if I stopped swimming, I guess I wouldn't have anything. Is at least how it's kind of hard to put myself like back as like, you know, 12, 13. But I mean, at least now that's kind of how I would see it is like that's like those are my people and this is the only sport I can do, even though I'm not like great at it. But I was also like I say, I wasn't the worst. Like there was always somebody worse than me. So there are like small victories would come up here or there. And so I mean, I knew I didn't want to do nothing. And, you know, I kept getting like little positive feedbacks here and there. And so I mean, I'm assuming that's why I stuck with it,
Hmm.
which
Yeah,
I'm glad I did.
for sure. I mean, I think that points to potentially your your ability to connect to a motivator that was something beyond just the pure extrinsic, you know, oh, I'm winning or oh, I'm, you know, because anyone who participates in athletics, you know, you're going to especially if you're competitive, you're doing swimming, right? You're going to compete and go to meets and things like that. But it sounds like you were able to connect to something that was a little bit more intrinsic that drove you. And whether that's like being with your friends or finding something else that was fun, that's super interesting.
It's hard. It just becomes like part of your life. Like when I had to quit, when I went into so I did community college from 15 to 17, and then I transferred to do my last 2 years of nursing school. And so when I had to quit at 17, that was like a whole, I mean, I definitely remember going, I don't want to, it obviously wasn't a midlife crisis, but it was this identity crisis because like swimming is, and I think for most of the swimmers I swam with, like it was kind of the same thing where it's like swimming is who we are. Like trying to be like, okay, what do I do now? Like if I'm not a swimmer and I'm not in the pool like 6 hours a day, like what do I do? Like it was just really, I don't know. I don't want to say I was depressed, but I was just like it's just very lost. Like I don't know what to do with myself. And that's kind of where I started going to just like a, you know, regular gym. But that just it just got kind of boring. but I still stuck with it for years because then that was all that I had was, you know, the normal gym. So I don't know, like I've always needed like that outlet to do something. And yeah, when swimming was gone, I was like, I don't know what to do with myself.
Yeah. I think a lot of people can relate to that, even if it's when they're in older adulthood, or maybe they
Mhm.
decided to have a family, or their career changed and now it took them away from a particular sport or activity that they really love, and they feel a little bit of a sense of being kind of a boat without a sail, and not really knowing
Yeah,
where to go. And how that can be really confronting and really confusing and even sad. And so I hear this from a lot of people who listen to the podcast and people in my community, which is, I've lost touch with this thing that I really like to do, and I'm
mhm,
sort of like, what else is there? So
exactly.
it's interesting that you bring that up. What about CrossFit for you ticked that, I don't know, ticked that box in your brain
You
that you
know
really liked?
CrossFit, I still remember in like 2008, I was in like a doctor's office reading a magazine and like CrossFit was on there. And I was like, I should try that. Like I should do it. And every year I'd make like resolutions, like birthday resolutions, like, all right, for this year, on like my 23rd birthday, I'm gonna sign up for a CrossFit class. And I think that's how it started, was I signed up for one. It's like, I'm probably not gonna like it because I'd never done like a group class before. So like swimming, like you're on a team, but you're doing your own thing. Like you're not, you're in your own lane. Even with when you're with other people in that lane, you're in your own lane. At the gym, I really didn't like talking to people. Like I just kind of did what I did. And if someone would come up to me and say something, I would just kind of get annoyed, but be nice and tolerate it because that's what you do. So CrossFit with the whole group thing is like, I'm really like not into that, but it turns out I am. So I think I went and I did my first class. The first workout ever was Helen. So I never ran like, well, and like I said, I have really bad like body awareness. So doing the kettlebell swing was funny. That was kind of like a joke, but I tried. Um, pull-ups, obviously, I think I did like jumping pull-ups or something. And then the running, I mean, I did what I could, but I don't know if I could do a 400 without like walking a little bit. Like that's just how bad it was. But I was so sore after that one workout, which now I think I would look at it and be like, that's just laughable. Like, how was I sore at that? But I was so sore. And I was like, this is good. Like, I haven't been sore in years because I've been doing the same like gym routine for that long. And I love it. Like, I love being sore. I love feeling like I did something. So I went back, I think, like two more times that week. And, you know, I sucked just as bad those two times. And that was kind of it. I was like, I'm kind of really enjoying like going and doing the class and like competing against people and being really sore. So actually, I think I went and canceled my gym membership like later that week. I was like, I'm good. I found CrossFit. And then, I mean, I don't know, it sparks like a new like competitive edge. And at that time, like CrossFit was definitely competitive, but I was still considered like pretty decent the first couple of years. Now I think I'd be like the bottom of the barrel, but
Well, it completely, gained so much traction. And you were talking about 2008. I mean, that was to see that on a magazine in 2008 that magazine was probably pretty ahead of its time, or pretty plugged in, because that was such an
oh
early
yeah,
days, right? And I think 2010, when I started, I did my first open in 2011.
okay,
And I think I want to say regionally, maybe I came in 100th place or something. And I thought,
which is good,
yeah, I thought, wow, next year I
right?
can get a full year of training under my belt, and next year, who knows, maybe I could make it to
Right.
regionals. And then it just kept growing and growing and growing. And of course, there's so many more people that my position only got worse and worse over time. Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, it's definitely has that element of you can still compete against yourself and other people, but there's also sort of that team dynamic to it sometimes, which
Right. Yeah.
is super interesting. And you're kind of, I think there is something to be said for suffering in a relatively controlled setting together with other people that
Oh,
you're doing hard stuff. And that is you it's hard to explain what that feels like until you actually do it and how cool that can be.
that was so the year I did Kokoro in 2017, my gym, this was like the last year my gym was going to try for like a team spot at regionals. And I don't want to say I won a place on the team. I performed well enough. I had a place on the team to go. And I gave it up because regionals that year was like 3 weeks after Kokoro. And I was so beat up. And I had a Europe vacation planned already that I was like, yeah, we'll like, give it. The alternate was one of my best friends. And I was like, have it. Like, you're going to perform better than I can. And that was the last year they did the 6-person team.
Mhm.
And then it went like super team and all this stuff. And I was just like, in hindsight, I'm kind of like, that might have been really cool. Maybe I should have tried a little bit harder to do that. But, you know, it is what it is.
Yeah.
They had a good time, and
You
that's fine.
found
And they honestly did do way better because I wasn't on the team. So
Well, you probably would have brought your own strengths to the mix, right? It's hard to say how it would
maybe.
have panned out. Um, so after you did Kokoro and Seal Fit, and then you kind of went on this trajectory of adventure racing and more endurance events. What did that phase of your life look like in terms of the skills that you were developing, or just how it was a different beast than something like an hour-long CrossFit class is a different kind of hard than a 48-hour Kokoro camp or a GORUCK challenge or something like that. So where did you have to go in terms of your training, in terms of your mindset to step into this new, very different type of pursuit?
I think, well, so adventure racing, it was just more like, okay, there's going to be random stuff, and you just kind of need to be prepared for like the random stuff. Um, so adventure racing, I really didn't know what to expect. I was kind of like a last minute alternate on a team, and I was like, let's do it. Um, and so mountain biking was one of the things, and I hate bikes. I really hate bikes. But I bought a bike. Um, I got decent, but anything technical was just awful. But just like I think just being more prepared to do like impulse things, like all right, like buy the bike, like do what you can, like find the trails, like put the time in. I think it shifted a lot at that point to like, okay, an hour just isn't going to cut it anymore. Like if I'm gonna like make this kind of my thing, I need to kind of be good, or at least average, be able to do a variety of things. So like, biking, cycling, swimming, um, running. But at the same time, like CrossFit is so good at like that, just like overall like body preparedness, I guess. So I kept doing CrossFit through all of it, but yeah, it just got to more randomness. So the biking, one of the endurance things I did was an Ironman. So I started like cycling, which is also awful. I hate cycling so much.
Well, not just cycling, but cycling for the
A million
distances that
hours.
you have to do in an Ironman,
Well,
a whole different beast on your body.
how people like cycling, I just don't know. Everything about that hurt. Um, I think it was interesting because you put certain things up on a pedestal, like, or like, an Ironman is the pinnacle of what fitness can be. Like that's kind of how I grew up, is like, oh my God, an Ironman. And so, when I started training for that, it was like, all right, like I gotta swim, bike, and run like all the time. And I stressed out a ton about the Ironman. And then I went to do it and I was like, I stressed out a lot for nothing. like, like not that the training didn't pay off, but it's essentially like 13 hours. Like for me, it was 13 hours of just like moving consistently. Like nothing was super hard. It was just movement. So it's kind of like as I've like progressed, I guess, in the endurance community, it's just forward movement, I guess, is kind of how I think of it now. Is like like training wise, I like to do some like short and fast things, and heavy things and whatnot, but I just try to keep moving. And that's really what I aim for, is just keep moving. And if I know there's going to be a skill that I should probably practice, like mountain biking, then, I might have to like shift things around, but same kind of thing. Like I'm probably just gonna try to get on and aim for like, time on the saddle or things like that. And yeah, just keep.
I was going to say we have a lot of parallels in our stories. I never did swimming when I was a kid, but I did participate in sports and played soccer and things like that. And then we both kind of got into CrossFit, and there was some overlap there. It sounds like in time when you were saying Lindsay Valenzuela and Tommy Hackenberg and stuff, I was like, I know who that is, right? Those are Rebecca Voigt and all of these
Right, yeah.
earlier CrossFit standouts, and then the one thing that's different, well, one of the things that's different between us is I raced mountain bikes for 8 years. So
Oh
that was kind of that was my jam. But yeah, it sounds like, through all of that, you sort of set your mind to whatever the task that lay ahead was, and just kind of focused in on what you had to do to make that happen. I'm curious, while still working full time, how did you carve out that time? How did you make it happen, training and priority wise, for the different things that you were doing, knowing they're not short events typically, and even in your training sessions, you'll probably do some longer training sessions. So how did you fit in and sort of prioritize and make that happen when you had these really big events coming up?
I don't know.
Fair.
What did I do? I mean, for those events, I feel like I would, going back like beyond like 2 years ago, beyond 2 years ago, I would always prioritize like CrossFit workouts. I would do what I could. Like sleep was always sacrificed. It just was. Like if I got like 4 or 5 hours like during the day, like that'd be pretty good. Um, but I would usually just try to do like my longer things outside of like work days. But I mean, to be honest, there's a lot of my training isn't like really long, like training sessions. Even when I was training, so I did like a 200-mile ultra, like in Scotland. Um, I ended up DNFing, which that's like that was like last year. So it was like, I didn't want to hurt myself. So I did like kind of call it soon, but training for that, I did like an hour on the True Form Runner, like maybe every day, maybe every other day. Because I'd kind of learned when I first started doing CrossFit and running, I was hurt all the time. Like, um, just like pushing it too much, too fast. And so I really don't feel like I tried to do too much, or I tried to do too much in between like work schedules and stuff. So I mean, like I was telling you, like my routines kind of shifted over the years as far as like sleep and workouts and what I feel like I can do. So I just tried to prioritize just like moving. Like if I got one thing done well, I was happy with that. And what I think I found just over the course of training the last few years is if I feel good about it, then it's fine. Then I'm happy. I'm not gonna go into the next training session feeling like a pile of crap or whatever for not doing something. So it was kind of like as long as I felt good about it myself, it was fine. So yeah, I'd usually end up just waking up really early, getting to the gym, doing what I could with as much energy and time as I had. And then just, shower and get back to work. So um yeah, it's well, and then looking at nurses, like half the time they're not like the healthiest people either. So when I was like, yeah, I woke up at noon to work out, and they're like, what are you talking about? It's like, all right, I'm doing something right because yeah, like no one else was awake at noon to work out. It's like,
Mm-hmm.
okay. But yeah, I don't know. I think at least for me, I just figured out what I needed to do to feel good about it and then did it.
Mm-hmm.
But
Yeah.
yeah.
That's super interesting. I mean, it sounds like you built up a really great base over the years as well. And then sort of you get to find that middle ground, I guess, between what you need to do to maintain certain things, certain aspects of the training that maybe need to come up a little bit, but sort of almost taking that minimalist approach to some
Yeah.
degree where you're also being able to manage the recovery, the wear and tear on your body, that sort of thing by pulling back and kind of only doing what you have to do.
And I think too, because like for me, like I say, I consider myself pretty average. So if I were, an elite level athlete, like doing this stuff, I mean, for first off, I would hope I'm not working full time if I was an elite athlete doing this stuff, but needs must. And that might change things. Like if I suddenly had all this time to go like, do a 30-mile trail run or something, then like for sure, like, you know, I would do that. But just with like the time and like the goals that I have for most of these things, like most of the time I just kind of want to finish. Like that's almost always my goal is just to finish something. So I feel like that, it takes a bit of pressure off. Like I'm not trying to place amongst like the top people. I'm just trying to, finish at a decently average place.
And you're doing. Let's kind of shift, I guess, a little bit into talking more specifically about GORUCK and about selection, since I know a lot of people who listen to this podcast are more familiar now with Rucking and even GORUCK as a company. But I don't think many of them know what selection is. So tell us sort of how you got interested and involved in Rucking from that point in your journey, and what planted the seed for you that selection was something you wanted to do.
um, this is fun. I feel like I was just talking about this the other day. I so after Kokoro, so when I finished that, there was one other woman that finished, and I want to say maybe a month afterwards, she sent me this link to this article that was like, "What's harder, GORUCK Selection or Kokoro?" And I had never heard of Selection. I don't think I'd ever heard of GORUCK before either. But she was like, "Do you want to do this next year?" And I was like, "No, not really." um, and so it kind of like it. I kind of pushed it back, but it was always there. Like when someone brings an event up, it's kind of always like in the back of my mind, like maybe, especially because I knew it was 48 hours. It was kind of another ass kicker. Like I was just curious, like, I've never heard of this thing before. I just did this 48-hour event, like maybe I could do that one. But I didn't think too much about it until I want to say it was like 2021, maybe 2020, 2021. A friend of mine, I had just done like a Spartan Ultra or something. And she was like, yeah, like, that's cool. Like, what about GORUCK? I was like, I don't know what that is. So, but so I looked into it and I was like, oh, this is like GORUCK Selection. Like, this is the thing that my friend sent me years ago. And I start like looking into like selection again and events and whatever. And I'm the type of person that I don't want to like start with a basic or whatever. Like, I just want to go for like the hardest thing. And I just read like selection was the hardest thing. And it's like, that's it. Like, that's what I want to do. And I was watching some of Chad's selection, like the initial like welcome party live stream when that happened. And I was like, this looks awesome. Like, this is what I want to do. So as soon as his class finished, I signed up for selection. And then this guy I was kind of dating, he was like, like, you might want to do an event and just kind of like see like what it's about. I was like, okay, fine, like I'll try one. So I signed up for the brag heavy because it was like, at least how I interpreted it was like the next hardest thing. So yeah, so my friend got me my friend got me thinking about GORUCK again, which got me to sign up for selection. And then that guy got me into the brag heavy. Um, and then I finally got my first ruck, finally, like in December of 21 or something. Um, and started rucking, and I had some other like training program where I was just like rucking and ruck shuffling and doing all this stuff that um I mean, I don't know. I don't really know what I was doing, whatever it told me to do. But no, went into the brag heavy. It was not at all what I was expecting. Because again, I think I kind of come from more of like a I don't know, like not a team-based type of event. Like, I wasn't really expecting it to be that much of a team-based thing. And I think in my head, I was still kind of like, like I'm just here. Like I'm just here to get experience for selection. Like, that's all I'm here for. Like, still just very like, all right, this is a training opportunity and that's it. Um, but then, I made a couple good friends from that. And I didn't actually meet Joe Baker there, but I saw him. And one of my Kokoro friends had actually mentioned Joe Baker before. And I was like, all right, well, I've seen him. So that seems like meeting him almost. So I'll reach out. So no, I reached out to Joe, and then Joe kind of like he became my coach and helped me with all it's just mostly weird. Is like going from like not doing any rucking to using a ruck for workouts and using sandbags. And I mean, it's just very different to go from using a barbell and, doing all this other like random stuff to it's like, all right, you're going to do a ruck swing. It's like, what is a ruck swing? Like, how do you do this? Or a crab walk with your ruck on? Like, is it on your front or back? Like, just these questions that would come up where I'm like, I really have no idea what the answer is. Like, it's just so different. Like, it's something that I think people are very doable, like capable of doing. It's just like, all right, how do you do this with this equipment? So
Mhm.
Joe was great with that aspect. And then just, because I had done brag, which, doing the GORUCK events, I mean, I'm going to say for myself, I don't think they prepare you for selection because they're just so different. They're so different. Like, I almost have a harder time in the events than I do at selection because I, as I've rucked now for the last couple of years, I'm like a really bad rucker. I don't walk fast. I don't particularly like enjoy it. Like, it's not my favorite thing to do. And carrying coupons is not like really fun for me. So like I struggle with events sometimes, but I love PT. Like, that's the whole like CrossFitty, like,
Mhm.
the stuff I love, and the water aspect. Like, I love that kind of stuff. So there's parts of selection where I'm like, this is great. Like, I'm having a really good time. And in events, you don't necessarily get the same opportunity. I
Mm.
also like just being told what to do. It takes a lot of the stress off of you. Like, in events, you have your team leads and things like that. And you don't have to deal with that as selection. They just
Mm.
they just take over, and it's great. For people like me, it's great.
So you didn't start rucking until a couple of years ago, more or less.
Yeah. Yeah.
When you first started, you just said you don't think you're particularly good at rucking. I
No,
mean, I guess that's all
I'm not
relative.
wrong.
But by the way, I love your mug. Her mug says "Kick today in the dick," which I think is an amazing mug. For those that aren't watching, um, you want the visual. But when you started rucking, and then you kind of had to get on board with that relatively quickly because there's a huge element of that even in no matter what GORUCK challenge people are going to do. For those who don't know, there's going to be a certain amount of rucking. So how did you start, and then sort of where did you progress up to with just your rucking in terms of how much you were carrying, how far you were rucking for?
Yeah. The first year when I started training, I probably only did the minimum, like 30 pounds. It's just hard when you go from like not having anything to suddenly having weight on your back. It was just kind of like, it's like, all right, everything hurts. This is really uncomfortable. Like, how can I make it easier? And it just never got easier. But I knew it's just one of those things where it's like, I have to do it. Like, it is what it is. I have to do it. Um, the first year, I almost, after my first selection attempt, when I said, like, I really didn't ruck that much, when the words came out of my mouth, I was like, all right, I probably could have rucked more. um, it felt kind of dumb there, but the first year I really did not ruck that much. Like, I would walk my dog like 2 miles on pretty flat terrain. It was never that heavy. It was like 30. I think occasionally I might do like 50 pounds. Like, it wasn't much. Joe would program like, the occasional 12 miler, things like that. Like, I would do the things that were programmed with weight, but usually like not much more than that. Like now I call it like my extra credit stuff, where I would like, add in more rucking or heavier rucking. But the first year I really didn't do a whole lot of like extra curricular rucking, which I think I definitely could have. Like, I didn't do the things that you do in GORUCK events that I hate doing. So like coupon carrying and wrecking.
For those who don't know, what's a coupon in rucking lingo or GORUCK lingo?
Like a sandbag. So you have your ruck, you have a sandbag, jerry can, water bladder, awkward things. Awkward things in addition to your ruck,
Mhm.
which are awful. But yeah, I didn't do a lot of it the first year. And that's really what, like, that first year when I quit, like, that's really a big reason, like what brought me down was the coupon, like a coupon carry, like a 4 mile coupon carry, like that destroyed me. Like, physically, I was not doing well, but like it was the first like mental hit I really took, the first selection that I did. Um, and that just wore me out. It wore me out, which I think led to my quitting shortly after that.
Mm. So you decided to sign up for selection
Mhm.
because you wanted to do the hardest thing there was. What do you think is that part of your brain or your thinking that is like, you know what? Fuck like starting with the easiest thing and building up over time. I just want to do the hardest thing. What about that drives you in a really positive way? Because some people would hear that and they would go, "Oh, hell no, I would die. This is a no-go zone for me." But for you, it sounds like that is the thing that again tickles that part of your brain. So do you have any insight there as to that decision-making process?
I mean, I think at least up until that point, it's never gone poorly for me.
Mm.
Um, I like I just like doing things. There's things I just never thought I'd be able to do. Like, I never thought I'd be able to do Kokoro, like the first thing I ever did, because I never thought I could do pull-ups, and then I could. staying awake for 24 hours, like doing any of that stuff. Like it's all stuff I never thought I could do, but then I did it and it was like, oh, this what I thought would be the hardest part wasn't even the hardest part. Um, I mean, I can't say like why I'm drawn to those kind of things. I definitely like the challenge. I like to push myself. I like to have a goal. Um, and selection was definitely like, a big goal. Like, all right, I have to do, here's this PT test they line out. Like if I can do the PT test, I can, keep going. And mentally, like I think swimming, for being like as average as I was, like swimming in particular, I thought set me up really well because you just keep going. Like you're in your own head for the whole, like you're in your own head, you're staring at a line in the bottom of a pool, and it just gets you really good at just going, like to kind of blocking out things around you and just going. And I think swimming set me up really well for endurance things like that because that's kind of what I grew up doing was just kind of shutting things down and just focusing on like what I was doing because that's really all that you could do. So mentally swimming set me up well for that. Other things like I think my parents were really good. Like looking back, I don't know if parents these days would do it, but they would like make me, it's kind of like, how bad do you want to get to swim practice? And like I'd have to take like 2 buses to get to the town that the pool was in, and then I would have to run like the mile and a half to the pool, and then I would get there maybe 45 minutes late, and then coach would like chew me out for being late, and it was like, and just having to swallow that, like, I just took 2 buses and I ran a mile and a half to get here, like I obviously want to be here. So kind of like just choking that back and just like taking it.
Mm-hmm.
I think that really came into play in like selection in particular because you're getting yelled at all the time, usually for things out of your control. Um, and so no, I think swimming set me up really well. Like why I do the hardest, I don't know, but I feel like if you're gonna do it, if you're gonna take the time to do it, you might as well just go balls to wall.
Well, it's interesting and great that you know that about yourself. And I think there are going to be people listening to this who have more of a, well, I'm going to kind of ease in and see what things are like mentality. And that works really well for them because they can gradually feel more successful and more confident in what they're doing. And it sounds like for you, you know that about yourself now as having this lifetime of participation in different athletic pursuits and different things is when I set the challenge, I set the bar high. That means I adjust my training and I align to meet that. Yeah, everything starts to point toward that objective, which
Mhm.
is great to know that about yourself. And I ask that question, knowing there's no one right or wrong answer. It's just always really fascinating to see how people are so different. And I guess the point is sort of knowing how you tick and then being able to kind of run toward that. Sounds really cool.
It's funny. I don't know what's wrong with me or why I do that. It's just always I attribute most of it to just swimming. Like swimming changed something in my mind that just made me want to or more capable of doing those type of things is what I think because it just sucks so bad so many times.
So for anyone who doesn't know, and I've kind of talked about this a little bit on the last podcast I did on rucking, but in terms of GORUCK events, you've got the light, you've got the basic, you've got the tough, you've got the heavy, and those sort of are different time domains and lengths of rucking and things like that. And the idea is we kind of come together as a team. Like you said earlier, there's team leader, you're sort of, the common goal is to get everyone to finish. And then you have selection, which is basically
Not
the opposite.
that.
Not that. So when you started thinking about selection and the things that you were going to have to do and sort of the different beast it was even from the brag heavy that you did. What were some of the things that I guess stuck out in your mind as you were going along, maybe through the training or through the first event, where you sort of had to battle that difference, right? Of,
Mhm.
they're trying to get me to quit. They're trying to get me to go home and just turn in and say, I'm not doing this. Where did you have to go with your mind to make that happen?
It's funny. The first year I tried it, I fully expected to make it to the end. Like I did not, because when I thought about it, I was like, well, why would I quit? Like, why would I want to quit? Like, quitting doesn't seem like an option. Like, I don't know why I wouldn't make it. Like, I'll pass the PT test, although there's always that anxiety about the PT test. But I was like, there's no reason I shouldn't pass it. Um, so there's no reason why I should want to quit. And then, we have like that 4 mile, it was just like a 4 mile rec carrying like a 60-pound bag. It shouldn't have been the worst, but it absolutely crushed me. And, we finished that. And I still don't think I was thinking about quitting, but we got into like the next thing. And, Rachel, the other girl, was so far ahead. And I was like, like I'm not meeting the standard. Like I know I'm not. I'm just sucking wind. I'm really far behind. I'm not meeting a standard. It's like, if she runs with this opportunity and passes, then like I'm okay with that. Like good for her. And I quit. And I was like, what did I do? Like, like in hindsight, because everyone asked after that, like why did you quit? It's like honestly, I have no idea. Like I was just really okay in that moment with being done and like letting her go. But the whole year of training up to that point, it never crossed my mind that that would even be a scenario where I just quit. So I don't know, because it's not like I wasn't taking it seriously, but I don't think I was. It's just an event I feel like you have to be fully invested in to pass it. And I don't think I was taking it like quite seriously enough to do so. So the next year, so then obviously at this point, now I'm like, okay, I know what it is to quit, especially at the 24-hour mark when, there's two of us left. I had no good reason to quit other than, I wasn't like at the top of my mental game. Um, and so I knew that feeling and I knew what it was like to deal with the aftermath of it. And also, I knew going into the second year, like when that was over and we were at headquarters, like eating burgers and stuff, Jason and I forget who else was there, but um, they were like, you were right there. They're like, we have no idea who you are or where you came from, or like you've done no events, but like you were so close to finishing. And they're like, you just need like just do more events, come back and and go for it again. Because you're so close. And I think them saying that where I was like, okay, they think I can do it. And like obviously I was doing really well. So I just need like that's what I need to do. I need to do more events and like really just focus on GORUCK. So, coming back around, I just made 2023 like the year of GORUCK. Like 2 weeks after that, I did my first HTB, which was awful.
For the people who don't know what HTV is, can you just briefly describe
Yeah.
that joy?
As soon as I said it, I was like, I should probably like.
Sorry.
So an HTB is a heavy, tough, and basic, all in one weekend. There's usually 4 to 5 hours between the events, but so it's the 24-hour followed by a 12-hour, followed by like the 5-ish hour event. Um, and for a lot of people, an HTB is kind of like their big event of the year. But I was feeling so bummed out after quitting selection. I was like, let's just do it. The stars aligned and transportation aligned, and it happened. And it was, the year of GORUCK started there. And so I did that. I did some more like Pearl Harbor events. I did all the brag events. Um, I didn't sign up for anything that wasn't GORUCK. except one event. And I made sure it was like really like pretty early in the year so it wouldn't impact anything. But it just, everything escalated at that point. Like it just became more of that obsession to get the training in. You never feel like you've done enough. That part of this year that was so stressful is knowing that I could do it, but always feeling like nothing was good enough. Um, I never felt like I could train enough. I couldn't, I couldn't run enough. I was doing all these extra push-ups and um, push-ups and lunges and all these things. And it's like, I just don't know if it's enough. And like sleep-wise, I mean, I cut a lot of sleep out during work days and stuff. Um, taking sandbags and rucks on vacation and like trying to work out at like 4 a.m. in a parking lot. Like it was really just stressful. The rucking weight, usually I would aim for like between like 75 and 100 pounds. And it would be doing like laps up and down this hill behind my house. Um, Everything just got heavier.
Mhm.
And I definitely like, I don't want to say I hurt myself, but like that, that sudden, like, jump in weight and jump in training, like I saw my physical therapist quite a bit. We'll go with that.
Yeah.
Um, but no, it was stressful, but there was that new drive, like, all right, I know I can do it. Like multiple people think I can do it. I think I can do it. I just need to put in like the time and the energy and, you know, go for it. And it paid off.
Yeah.
Thank God.
Well, we were, as I said at the top of the show, we were watching GORUCK Scars on Instagram. They were live streaming as much of the selection event as possible. And we started really watching kind of, I would say before the 24-hour mark, but it was you and another candidate still going at that point. And we saw that he decided to, or he was dropped from the event. And so we knew it was just you left. And we were talking amongst ourselves thinking, wow, I mean, does that make it easier knowing you're the only one? Or does it
Yeah.
make it harder knowing you're the only one? Because now Cadre is trying to get only you. You're the only one who can be focused on to really push you, try to get you to meet the standard and ultimately see if you have what it takes to make it through. It goes dark overnight. Obviously, they're not live streaming. I'm assuming at that point you're doing the long walk at some point throughout the night and into the morning. And when we got the broadcast back in the morning, we're like, she's still going. So how was it knowing that you were then the only remaining person? Were you invigorated by that? Did it present another level of difficulty? Was it you back in the pool again, kind of staring at the line? What was that like?
It was great. I don't want to say it was great. It was, the nice thing about selection this year is I feel like I was like, my goal was to be mentally there. Like, I feel as though when I quit the year before, I just lost control of like my thoughts and emotions and I quit and I wasn't thinking. And so this year I wanted to go into it being very present and just like, able to like acknowledge emotions and people and things and all that. And shockingly, I feel like I really was. Like I felt very like in tune with everything the entire time. So I mean, my first thought when I knew that they were gonna drop him, my first thought was like, oh, like that sucks. Because we had chatted like a little bit during the 24-hour mark. And I mean, I didn't know like a ton about him, but like I knew you don't get to like hour 30 something without it meaning something to you. And so for him to get dropped at that point, I was just like, at first I just felt really bad. I was like that's just heartbreak. Like I can't imagine being dropped at that hour. Um, and then once it was official, I was like, all right, this isn't that bad. Because part of what kind of sucked, especially leading up to that 24-hour mark, is we were both good at different things. So if we got to something that he was really good at, like rucking or carrying things, he would always take, like I was always the loser in that scenario. And then things with like more PT-ish type movements, like I was better at it. So having him gone was way better for me. Like as far as the event goes, it was way better for me because now I wasn't, always in second place because I was the only person there. So it was actually really nice to be by myself because the cadre, there's enough cadre at that point anyways. It doesn't matter if like, I have four of them on me or like all of them on me. Like they're all, especially in the dark too. It's just a lot of voices, a lot of like lamps in your face.
Mm-hmm.
Like it didn't make a difference. So it was just nice because it's
Mm.
like, okay, now it's just me. I'm not, it's not, go beat, was the number 26. It wasn't like, catch up to 26. It was, all right, you have 5 minutes to get to the river, like go.
Mm-hmm.
And that I preferred that a lot more. It's a lot less stressful in a way. It's still
Mm.
very stressful, but it was less stressful than being like, all right, like I have to beat this guy.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was fine. And then like you said, I'm really used to being I train alone. I do most of my stuff alone. Like I'm really not super used to like team events. So it was totally fine
Mm.
being by myself. Yeah.
Super interesting. So toward the end of the event, the cadre are all asking you, why are you doing this? It's kind of the home stretch, right? We assume you're sort of going up that hill one more time and getting to the top, and they're sort of grilling you, why are it sort of shifts, right? Before that, they're trying to get you to almost quit. And then there's a shift in what they're doing. And they're kind of getting you to sort of tap into the why.
Yeah.
And I'm assuming to try to just like give you that connection point to get you to finish. And they had you keep repeating, sort of, why are you here? Why are you here? And I'm wondering if you can kind of walk us through what you said and ultimately what that purpose was.
Yeah.
What did you connect to in that moment?
Yeah. That was actually probably one of the most stressful parts because I was and this is going to sound dumb, but I was trying to think of a way to say it where it could be like two words, like something really short. And like my why, I felt like there's just no way to get it into two words. And so when they were asking me, I think I said like, friends and family. I'm like, which, in a big version of things, like sure, maybe. Um, but when I think I was heading, starting to head up the hill, and Jason was like, when he got like really close and everything, he's like, "That's not what you told me earlier." And I was like, I think I even said, "I can't fit that into two words." So, so no, it actually, I mean, what it turned into being is, when I quit the year before, because I went in as kind of the dark horse. Like they said, no one knew who I was. I'd done one event. I think I knew Joe because he's my coach. Like he has to know me, and I knew like one other person. Um, and I really, when I got back to like social medias and stuff, like there was so much support from so many people, um that I had no idea who they were, but like they had like signs and everything, and they were like cheering me on, and they all like, there's so much support after that really drove me to like keep going and to try again and everything. And then seeing those people at events, and just how encouraging they were, and how much like they really wanted me to do it. Um like I had fully expected to do GORUCK and then just kind of pass selection and then like leave. because that's what I had done so many times. It's like, all right, I'm going to do this event and I'm going to take off. And, it's just, there was so much community support that I was like, all right, like I feel like these are my people. Like, I don't know why, but they've accepted me. And so, this just feels right. It feels good. And like, I wanted to like do right by them because they really had my back the whole time. So um, at the 24-hour mark, when Jason was asking us what our why was, I was like, well, after last year, like there was so much, support for me and for what I was doing. And, just like, she could be like the next woman to do this. And like, we think she got this far. Um, and it's like, I want to do it. Like, I want to do it for the community and for the people. And, at the time, I don't think it was necessarily like just for women, but I think being the second female to do it, like it is special. So I was like, yeah, like I'm a chick, I'm gonna do this. um, so that's really kind of what it turned into is like I want to do this for the community and for the women, for like the badass babes GORUCK community, which is another thing people can look at, badass babes. um, but yeah, like I want to be that person that people can look up to. Like, I'm getting yelled at and doused with buckets and all this stuff, but it's doable. Like, just keeping that forward momentum, like it's doable, and like watch me do
Mhm.
it.
And we did. And as you were coming into your final moments of the event, it was just really awesome that you had so much support on Instagram in the comments. And when you were saying, I really want to inspire other women and girls in this community. And there were so many people who were like, I'm a guy and she's inspiring me, which I thought was really, really cool. But it was amazing to see just your sort of strength of mind and your composure and your presence in that moment came across the screen so powerfully. I was lucky enough to to stand next to you at the event in November. So we just had the HTB, the Recon Raider HTB here in SoCal. I did the basic. I was I was not ready yet for a heavy or a tough, but in roll call, we stood next to each other in line because our last names both start with G. And during roll call, anyone who was doing the HTB had to hold your rucks over your head. Now, again, you're at the end of, basically a whole weekend of this. You'd already gone through the 24-hour, already gone through the 12-hour. And the rest of us were kind of standing there. And I could just see out of my periphery, I could see other folks who had been doing the HTB as well. And those packs seemed really heavy and they're really, really tired. And I could see you out of my left periphery and you were just standing so still and so calm. And I just thought, all right, I want to be like Allison because
Well, it's funny, like I mean, there's two things. Like I really like suffering in silence, is something that Cleve says a lot. And I don't like, I'm a quiet person. Like I don't really like talking or making a lot of noise or whatever. So I love that phrase, like just suffering in silence. But I mean, part of it too is like being like I want to be like that role model for people. Like, you know, like you can do it. Just like be quiet and breathe and do what you can. Like do what you can. And when you can't, then take a breather and get back up and like it's fine.
Mhm.
It's fine. Like I want to be, I'm a calm person, but I want to make sure like that comes across too, that I'm like, that I'm calm. Like you can be calm in stressful situations.
Yeah, and in a team type of environment, a group environment like those events, maybe a selection it being its own thing, but the other types of GORUCK events, the more calm and composed and sort of together you are. I mean, that affects the group dynamic. That affects how people feel, and we have that human connection and how contagious it can be in a good way and also a negative
Yeah.
way. And knowing that you can have that power of influence over others and be that quiet leader. It was really cool to be able to do that event alongside you and to see you in action in person. I was really very starstruck, and I was so grateful that you agreed to come on the podcast. Looking forward now that you've completed selection, you've done your other GORUCK events, you do your HTB very recently. What is on the horizon for you as you look forward in your next pursuit? What's the next challenge for you?
Well, there's still a lot more GORUCK stuff.
That's true.
Um, Gosh, I have a list of things. There's a list of things. There's some things that I've just seen that I just kind of want to try. Like there's like the GORUCK, like the DECA fit stuff. Like just I guess more like fitnessy stuff would be kind of fun, like the high rocks stuff. I kind of like to just try them. Like I say, I'm not like an elite fitness athlete, but I like to see what it's about. There's always more endurance events I've just never kind of gotten around to trying. That I just, kind of want to like mark off my list, I guess. There's some long swims, but I'll hold off on that. There's some really good swims that I kind of like to do. Once my shoulder's like a-okay again, there's some longer swims I want to do. But I mean, I'm kind of just going, I don't know, like whatever comes up. I will say there's nothing like selection that I'm super worried about, that I think I might have to like train for 2 years in order to make it. There's just a lot that I feel like I didn't have the opportunity to try this past 2 years, that I just kind of want to go see what it's about. So yeah, there's definitely, I was going over my calendar last night, and there's definitely a lot I want to do, and we'll see if I can fit it all in, but nothing as stressful as selection training was. But if something big, I mean, if something comes up that, looks super awesome, then I mean, 100%.
Yeah.
I don't know. I love training. I love training with like, a purpose in mind. So right now the training purpose is just to kind of be ready for whatever comes up. But yeah, if something big came up, like I'd be on it. I'd be about it.
I love that. I love that. Well, I'm so glad that you joined us. I think that people can learn a lot from how you approach training, how you have really approached things mindset wise. And I love what you just said there about having a purpose for what you're training for, and how that can help guide and sort of move you in that forward direction. I think you have a lot of wisdom to share, and I definitely know you're inspiring to, yes, the greater community, but also to women, and saying, hey, if you have a big dream, you have a big goal, it's totally possible. It's doable. And I know you've said many times on this episode that you don't think you're an elite athlete or anything like that, but I can tell you this: you definitely stand above the rest in some really singular ways. And I'm just really grateful for you being here and sharing your experiences. And I'm really looking forward to seeing your next adventure. I think it's going to be great. So thanks for being with us.
No, thank you for having me.
Yeah. If there's any one last thing you could share with anyone, any last thought that you have to leave with the listeners, now's the time.
Now's the time. That's pressure. I don't know. Just chill out.
Have fun, right?
Like, have fun. Enjoy the moment. I don't know. Just do what you can in that moment.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's really all you can do.
Mm-hmm.
It'll work out.
Truly. Well, thank you so much for being with us, Allison. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thanksgiving recovery.
Yeah. All right. Have a good one.
Okay, thanks. You too.